Inheritance tax. Believe it or not, it has been one of the most successful and most important of taxes to the entire history of, not only the UK, but England. And the inheritance tax goes all the way back to Henry VII. He was the original guy who brought in the inheritance tax. And the original idea was this: you're Henry VII. You've just successfully managed to win one of the most brutal civil wars at that time that has ever really been fought. The entire kingdom had been pretty much devastated. There had been huge loss of life in this. And not only that, you want to make sure that the conditions that became because, shall we say, of the the Wars of the Roses were because the Lancastrians and the Yorkists became so powerful landowners that they could challenge the king at any moment they particularly like, because they were just so powerful, so wealthy individuals, they could just do that. So he comes up with an idea. I know, whenever one of these big, barons or lords pops the clogs, they now have to pay inheritance tax, meaning whoever is gaining their inheritance up to a certain amount, then they have to pay an extra amount of tax. To me, I'm the king. That will ensure that at least they won't become so insanely wealthy again that they'll be able to challenge the king. And bear in mind, the inheritance tax has pretty much remained in place since then. Like since then, it has remained in place. And even to this day, still, the Conservatives would like you and everyone else to think that somehow everyone pays inheritance tax. No one. Pretty much no one in the UK pays inheritance tax. It's like 4%. 4% of the population in the UK pays inheritance tax. It is such a small, minuscule amount, but it brings in billions of pounds into the treasury every year. It is the most successful tax we have ever had. And of course, now you may have heard today, there's a big farming protest going on where they are complaining about this new family farm tax that is being put on them by the Labour government. This is not a family farm tax. This is just a change to inheritance tax, because what most of these people who are running this protest would like you to think that it is poor old Farmer Giles and his wife, wanting to pass on their farm to their son, and the shame and the joy and the shame that would bring if poor soon to be Farmer John can't inherit his dad's house and land and live there himself. That's essentially what they would like you to believe. However, what we are talking about, especially in this land tax, in this inheritance tax that is coming in, is the fact that now up to about £300,000. So bear in mind, that is non-taxable up to that point. They don't have to pay a single penny on that. For £300,000, you don't have to pay a single penny. After that, you then have to start paying money. So already, that is a heck of a lot of money. That is a heck of a lot of money, because it is the wealthy landowners that are now having to actually, once again, pay this tax. This is the wealthy complaining about the fact they now have to pay money. And of course, it is people who are saying, like, oh, Jeremy Clarkson, like, oh, think of poor Jeremy Clarkson. No, Jeremy Clarkson was on an interview. I think there is an interview clip of him somewhere, and I'm sure it's been doing the rounds as well. The whole reason he bought that farm was so he could get around, so he didn't have to pay tax on it. James Dyson bought huge swathes of land because, again, he thought he didn't have to pay tax on it. And bear in mind, Victoria Atkinson wrote a piece today in Conservative Home where she gives away the game away for this because she quotes a guy who is apparently Welsh. Here it is. Yeah. One Welsh landowner contacted me to say that Labour's plans means he must now sell his 6 multi-generational farming families on his land, that he will now have to sell their farms. In other words, they will lose their homes, their businesses, and their children's future. Bear in mind, this guy is such a big landowner. He has 6 people who are currently farming their land. Yeah, I think this guy's gonna do all right, even if there is, this farm, this on here. But yeah, gives the game away. This is only, once again, it's trying to protect the incredibly wealthy. And I would like to remind you, Victoria Atkins, you had 14 years in power, because she does go on to say about how we need to look at, tax loopholes and make sure, people don't, don't pay, are making their fair share of tax. Well, no, buying land was seen as a way by a lot of these people to get out of paying tax. And yet you go into the comments and a lot of people are saying this as well. So someone else says here, I'm at least very supportive of farmers, especially these stock and hill farmers who have a very difficult time and do need help. Although I suspect few of them will actually have very serious problems. I do struggle to understand, of course, some of Victoria's comments. Her comments, of course, about selling land seem to imply that it will no longer be used for agricultural production. In reality, is it almost certainly to be farmed? Maybe, of course, by a new young entrant. And of course, these are now urgently needed in farming. Alternatively, many, of course, may be made more successful now farming by a farm expanding. This has always happened. Victoria implies that family farms have remained static for over generations. This is just simply not the case. Ever since World War II, farms have expanded, and numerous family farms have then been absorbed into larger family farms. I cannot recall any real descent to this. Quite the reverse. It simply took the reduction, of course, in farming the workforce since World War II. So finally, of course, she quotes a farmer with potentially £900,000 of inheritance tax to pay. That is, of course, at 20%. This implies that the farm and the kit is, of course, worth at least 4.5 million, plus the house, the exemptions and allowances are likely to its value of at least 6 to 7 million. This assumes that there is either no wife nor no children, or the owner has refused to take any sensible planning steps. I do struggle to see that someone with a business worth over 6 million has not even taken or acted on even the most basic of tax planning. So already they're on that. Someone brings up the tax advantages that you get away. Agricultural land and woodland can be 100% exempt from inheritance tax. If you've got, you may also qualify for agricultural property relief. If you owned a farm to land for at least 2 years, or owned it by at least several other years, but farmed by someone else. Yeah, the Harris Tweed and Range Rover Brigade are going to be out in force trying to plead poverty. The inheritance tax inheritance tax again apply to everyone. I'm sure the tax-savvy farmers will only work a way to get around this. Yeah, and bear in mind, it is worth pointing out that this inheritance tax is only going to apply to, again, if you take all the UK farming land, it only applies to like 0.25% of UK farmland that is going to have to pay this inheritance tax. Once again, only 4% of people in the UK pay inheritance tax. If you look at this farmland thing that they've added, this family farm tax, yeah, only about 0.25% of is going to apply to that farmland. That is an incredibly small amount. It is negligible. because you are talking less than 1%. Less than 1% on this. And they know it. And they fully know it on this one. Someone else says, brings up here, quotes it, and they say, of course, the abuse of the tax system must be tackled. So, how about some ideas as to how? Why have wealthy individuals been allowed to buy farmland as a way of avoiding tax? Jeremy Clarkson previously admitted in an interview with the Times this was a big factor of him buying a farm. I've seen it also reported that a certain vacuum hand dryer manufacturer bought over £100 million worth of farmland for a similar reason. You've had 14 years in government to actually deal with this. You didn't. How about actually about prioritizing alternatives rather than just complaining? Um, Someone else, I like this. If farmers are not making enough, we should actually look into better subsidies and other specific support. Tax exemptions that will create extra loopholes are just not the answer. Although I do suspect, although I thought we were all of us about tax simplification, am I still on conservative home? um, Yeah, someone else here. Farmers on the surface seem to have decided that this is time to disrupt Britain. There is now a generalist, now political support from the Conservatives. Tax for thee, but not for me. There is now it is obviously very concerning to the British public not actually warm to this. Will any far right individual in today's disruption actually spoil the message? Someone else said here, I trust the authorities will, of course, be on hand in Westminster to actually confirm that no farmer is, of course, committing an offence by using red diesel on public road in his tractor. Oh, yes, that's another perk enjoyed by, of course, the wealthy farmers, the red or tax free diesel. Over at The Guardian, there is an article, of course, claiming that over a third of children now live in poverty in Brexit Britain. We, meanwhile, are now trying to support a protest to the effect that wealthy people do not have enough money. Keir Starmer will be breakfasting very well this morning. Um, Someone else said here, there are around over 108,000 farmers in the UK. By contrast, over 2 million people in the UK work in logistics. Yet this week there has been at least one article per day about this group with over 108,000 people, and absolutely nothing about the 2 million. Sure, the farmers do not have the numbers anymore to deserve this much attention from a party looking to be re-elected. Um, So instantly, as you can see, this is not going down well. This whole idea that they are trying to sort of sell this as a family farm tax is not going down well, because even when comments on Conservative Home are like, no, I'm pretty sure they're going to be fine, because as we've said before, 0.25%. If you take all the UK farmland, it's only 0.25% of the farmland that this inheritance tax will apply to. My heart bleeds for someone who is going to inherit over at least £300,000. And bear in mind, they don't have to pay any tax on that until it passes that threshold. So, yeah, I doubt they're going to be in any too much problem. And also, bear in mind, another point you brought up there, which is worth pointing out, is the new entrants, that young farmers who want to get into farming, there isn't enough farmland available for them to get into farming. So if these extremely rich people now have to sell off their farmland, then it can be bought by these new entrants into the farming world, and that will be good. But of course, we can't, because we have to care about all these rich people complaining that they are not going to have enough money. Yeah. Don't be fooled by this. Honestly, by this spin on this. This is inheritance tax. This is an incredibly good, I think, a very good move by Labour, putting the tax on this. Virtually no farmer will have to pay it, except a very, very small, minuscule amount. Like I said, it literally applies to 0.25% of farmland. It is nothing at that point. What's all the big deal? Oh, that's right. It's rich people complaining about the fact they've been getting the tax. This is exactly what you see all the time about inheritance tax, trying to make people think everyone pays inheritance tax when they don't. It's like 4% of people in the UK actually have to pay inheritance tax. And it's going to be the same for farmers. But of course, the protest today is going to try and convince the British public that all the farmers are going to have to pay inheritance tax when they don't. So we'll see, of course, what happens here. But I don't think this is going to go as well as they think. It does not seem to be going over the way that they would like. Even those comments in Conservative Home, an incredibly conservative place, um, those commenters are not convinced by the fact that someone like Victoria Atkins, the new shadow DEFRA person, is supporting this. So doesn't look good for them at all. So as always, let me know what you think down below in the comments. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.